And the whole country is now have to adjust to a cultural change. But there's other things happening too. We're looking at what's going on with that was the Supreme Court, and that affected, everybody. Then we're looking at what's going on with the trial, and people going back and forth about what's gone with our past president, and we're finding out more and more facts about things that took place and things that happened. It just seems like change. The gas prices have gone crazy. They've been going crazy. They just seem like they're getting crazier and crazier. Food prices are outrageous, so you can't cook. So change in culture is happening on every level. And then we know about what's going on in the church. So church doesn't look like it used to anymore. So now you don't even have to come to church to go to church, right? So now people are online. They zooming in, zooming out. Doing all kind of things, and our whole culture, as we know it, is changing rapidly right in front of us. Now, some of you may say that, man, all these changes are for the good. And then some of us might scratch our head and say, I don't know if they're all for the good or not. But regardless of whether they're for the good or for the bad, they're changing. Okay? They are definitely changing. So I have a whole bunch of slides that you can't see right at the moment, but you will see them in a bit. So anyway, so first, one of the things I did, I'm going to go through some of this real quickly, but it's things that we talked about last week. I defined culture, and I need to do this because I want us to be on the same page as we think and talk about culture. So I talked about culture as a customary belief. I talked about culture as a set of shared attitudes. I talked about culture as a set of values. And then finally I said culture is an integrated pattern of human knowledge. Integrated knowledge creates these patterns that we share. So I talked about culture and that. And then I went through, the book of Daniel, and I talked about how, through those first 9 chapters, one of the things that it said in the Bible, it says that God impacted Judah because the country, now check this out, was running wild. The country was running wild. And then it talked about all the different changes. And this is really small. You might not be able to see it, but it'll get bigger, believe me. I just need to get a lot of things on there. So it talked about, the country running wild. And then it talked about the change that was happening. It's talking about on the political, the social, the financial, the moral, and spiritual decay led to the country's demise within 2 short decades. Within 20 years. And within 20 years, the whole country had collapsed. Do y'all think we could collapse in 20 years? To me, it looked like we almost collapsed in 4. It didn't take 20 with one president. In one president's term, now whether you like him or hate him, I'm just saying, we saw tremendous change, and it's still going on in this country. And we're still seeing the fallout, I think, that's my opinion, I think that we're still seeing the fallout from the impact one president has had on this country. So 20 years might be thinking too broadly or too favorably. So we talked about all the things that we saw and I went through verse by verse, verse 1, the national crisis of them being conquered, and then verse 2, the governmental change, and the introduction of new religion, blah, 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 and we go on and on and on. And I'm moving through some of this quickly just because I was a little bit late and I need to move through it quickly. And so then the prior week, I had asked some of you guys about what kind of things had you heard? What kind of things you thought impacted our culture, church culture, your culture here? And then you guys shared a number of different things with me about some of the things that you guys have heard about, like national crisis, the pandemic, government, lack of respect for religion, miseducation of our children, change in normative culture, things that, the way that we used to view things, the normal way we used to look at things, we don't look at them that way no more. Views on sex, views on drugs, personal rights, all these things, whether we legalize this or not legalize, whether we give rights, take rights away, introduction of new value systems, gun standards, relationships, boundaries have changed. Bullies, which I thought was interesting, that has to do with attitudes and things, bullies in the church, out the church where you live, just integrity overall. All these things were things that you guys thought were impacting our culture. So then I said, I wanted to ask you guys a question, and I have some cards here, so let me see if I can do this real quickly. I have a whole bunch of stuff here, but as some of you guys may and I know they can't hear me. As some of you guys may remember, almost ever since I've been coming here to church, I've had the same bag. Man, as of Father's Day, I had to change my culture and get a new bag. So, Sherman, could you give everybody a card? And I'm sorry I didn't open it. I got a pen if you want to stab it. You got it? So anyway, this is what I want you to think about. And you at home, if you're watching online or whatever, and Victoria, hopefully you're on. If not, but then you're not. That's not a problem. But for you at home, I want you guys to go to the chat line if you can. And I want you guys, and this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to come back with this later in a bit. But I think it's going to impact. So I want you guys to think about, and we're not looking for paragraphs or anything like that. We're looking for more like sentences. This is more just for you and us, even though I'm taking them up. Don't put your name on it or whatever. I just want you guys to think about this. We're going to do a test. You guys wasn't ready for a test, were you? So that's okay. Them the best ones. So we're going to do a little culture test. And I'm just curious. And then what I'm going to do at the end of the Sunday school, I'm going to ask you guys just to hand in your cards right now and there for you to look at and to think about. And then for you online, Victoria, if you're online with us, can you maybe copy whatever the questions they are? I guess I could pull it up so I could see it myself. Could you guys copy the answers in terms of, or the questions so I can just kind of see them later, or maybe even address them at some point? So, and I'm going to try to go on so I can possibly see some of them well. So, all right, so the first thing is, you got your cards, and like I say, maybe just a single answer you can write on front and back. There's no right way or wrong way. Think about 5 things you like about First Baptist. Now, it ain't got to be nothing. You can just say, I like the pews, I like where it's located, it's close to home. I don't care. You can write whatever you want to write. I like my best friend goes here. I like because they let me wear the shoes I like, whatever you like, right? Whatever you like about First Baptist, that's what I'd like for you to put on your card, right? That's the first 5 things. 5 things that you like about First Baptist, right? Then the second thing is, while we're going through this, I want you to write 5 things I think we could do better to show that love is the First Baptist way. What's 5 things that you think that we could do better to help live out our motto, which is love is the First Baptist way? Y'all got that? It's not too bad. Now, don't be not listening to everything else I said while you're writing, right? Just think about it, jot it down as you can. You ain't got to get all 5. You get 1, that's fine. That's not that big a deal. It's not that type of test, right? All right. So first thing is 5 things I like about First Baptist. And then the other thing is, oops, no wonder. Then the other thing is 5 things that you think we could do better to show that love is the First Baptist way, right? And then this is the last thing. I told you it was a test, right? And y'all can do it in any order. You ain't got to do the first 5 and then the next 5 or whatever. You can do it in any order you want. And you ain't got to do all 5. You can do it however you want to. Hey, Miss Sheila. I love her smile. So anyway, so this is the thing about it. So what I should have put on mine, one of the things I like about First Baptist is I like Miss Sheila's smile. So anyway, the last thing is, if there's another church out there, name another church that you think has their culture together. You might see another church, could be online, could be anywhere, could be here. You're like, man, I think they're doing really well. Man, they really seem to live their culture. They really seem to be working out their culture. All right, while you guys are thinking about that, I just said it wouldn't be fair for y'all to do it and me not do it. So I'm going to run through mine real quickly. I hesitate because some of y'all, I know how y'all were in school. Y'all just want to copy. So I'm kind of scared to show some of y'all my answers because y'all want to copy. But I'm going to show it to you. But if you copy, then I'm going to see if I can get the AV to put up your name on the screen next week. That here's who copied my answer. So anyway, so here's my shot at it. And y'all don't get to do nothing. We're going to go ooh or ah, but y'all don't get to say nothing. Just ooh or ah if you like or don't like my answers. So here's my answers. So I said 5 things I like about First Baptist Church of Jeffersontown, and I'm going to do 6. Because the first one going to be I like Miss Sheila's smile. The second one is I like the people. I do. I think there's nice people here. I like it has a history of service to our community. So one of the things I found out when I came here, the people here were serious about loving the community. They were out in the community. They were doing things in the community. When I first came, Reverend Coleman was here. And man, and like when I started asking about him in the church or whatever, I found out, man, everybody knew about First Baptist because they seemed like they was everywhere out helping people and doing things. The kids were out doing stuff. The people were out doing stuff. The church was out doing stuff. There was a history of service here that we serviced the community. I also liked it was good for my family. When I came here, there was stuff I could get my kids into. That's what really got us here, right? Well, my kids, new kids here. There was so many things for them to do. My wife and I, we didn't know that many people here at the time, but people were friendly. We got to meet people pretty quickly, so it was really, really cool. Then the next thing I liked about First Baptist, you could feel the spirit here. Man, you come in, and sometimes the word be preaching, man, the choir be singing, and you just, and it's like it was being preached just to you. You could literally feel the spirit here at times. I like that. Yes, ma'am. Oh, AV, they were still looking at the questions. The first one was 5 things you like about First Baptist. The second questions were 5 things that you think we could do better to show love is the First Baptist way. 5 things we do. And it don't have to be 5. Like I say, it could be 2. And then the third thing was, is there another church out there that you think they got their act together, they're pretty much, making adjustments to the times and they're moving right along and they're still doing what God got them to do. Okay, so, and then the last thing, I said, one of the things I liked about First Baptist, I learned a lot here about the Bible and about whether through our Sunday school and the teachers and other people here. Man, there were so many people here, man, that poured into me. Brother Bill, I don't want to start calling names, Robinson and Brother Weaver, and man, and the previous Sunday school director is not Miss Burks, not Miss Helen Hambrick, there was another one. A little lady, no, not for, a lady. Huh? Miss Mary Williams, oh my goodness. She almost beat me up in the hallway one day and told me I was going to be a teacher. And I didn't know what to say. I was scared of her. So it wasn't like she was asking no questions or nothing like that, like I had a choice in it. And she told me, don't be acting silly, you're going to be a teacher and act right. And I go, yes, ma'am. So that was how I got to become a Sunday school teacher. All right, and then the 5 things, and I got to move through this a little bit quicker. So then the 5 things that I think we could do to show, better show that love is the First Baptist way. I think we should look forward more than we look backwards. I think we should embrace change in technology. I think we should walk by faith by investing in the advancement of our properties and our ministry. That's an investment. I think we should empower our youth and our young adults. I think we should create processes that help us to work smarter and more closely together for others. Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
In regards to love at the First Baptist way, something was said last week that kind of stuck with me all week.
Okay.
And that was what Sister Harris had mentioned. She said, initially, love was the First Baptist way. Initially came from Reverend Coleman.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, what was the original intent of love is the First Baptist way? To answer that question correctly, I would need to know what was the original intent. Because you said something and it changed over time.
Sister Harris, you want to give some input on that? Or Sister Robinson, or any of you guys have been here for a bit, or Sister Barbara's back there. Go ahead, Sister Harris.
Catching me kind of on the spot without my thought processes going so early in the morning. But I would say, Brother Barzley, that probably it has to do with a lot of the points that you've made. The leader of First Baptist Church, Pastor Coleman, had a love for the people. He desired for the people to be involved in the church. He was a good preacher, of course, but he also had a way of making people feel comfortable. There were a number of young ministers who came from the seminary because they liked the way he dealt with his congregation, as well as the way he preached the word.
Yep.
And so I haven't gotten to the right word yet, but it was the way he dealt with the people in a loving, kind way. Not only in the church, but in the neighborhood, in the Middletown area ministries, and in other ways. It had a lot to do with the people, with the service, just as you had said. He was interested in the whole family, and so those are a few points that I can remember about Pastor Coleman, and I've been here a few years.
Anyone? I saw Sister Barbara's hand back there.
I remember when I came here, and a lot of you have heard me doing Bible study at Sunday school talk about how when I came here with my son 50 years ago, that when I walked, we had lived in town, and I had been going from church to church, and people knew, I'm quite sure that I was visiting. And really no one really came to me to welcome me or anything like that. And of course, then I was a different person too, wasn't outgoing. But then when I came to First Baptist, had my son with me, and immediately, of course, we were in a little church then, but people immediately reached out to me. Of course, they knew I was visiting, but they reached out to me and made me feel, I felt loved. I felt included. I was noticed. And once again, like Sister Harris said, it had a lot to do with the pastor, but it was the whole congregation, pastors, the pastor, the deacons, the pew members. And then it didn't stay there on Sunday. It was after Sunday.
Okay.
They came to you and let you know that you were welcome.
Okay.
I could go on, but that's the thing. And then here's the other thing: when we go out in evangelism now, like at the fire department, they talk about Reverend Coleman. They talk about Reverend Coleman, said he would come over just at any time to talk with them to see what they needed. I've been on the phone with people from other congregations that have been affiliated. They had their children at J-Town High School or elementary, and they'll say like, "Oh yeah, we remember, we know about your church." Oh, and they immediately say, Reverend Coleman.
A history of service.
Yeah, he would come and come to J-Town High School without any notice, I don't know what, and check on the children, not just the football team, but he would check on, see what the high school needed. And so he was definitely an integral part of this community.
I would agree. Like I said, we had a history of service to the community, and the people, like I say, went throughout more than a week. Anybody else before we move forward? Sister Meriwether?
I'm a little late on this, but definitely one of the
Speaking
things
to the
that
mic so they can hear you.
One of the things that I have is the legacy and history of First Baptist, which definitely includes Reverend Coleman. And there's always that feeling that you can participate. You don't have to just sit and look. You can get involved, you can do things. And so that creates that sense of belonging. And we all know when we've studied anything about organizations that you have to feel like you're a part of it if you want it to be an effective organization. And I've always felt like that here. And Reverend Coleman, you just can't quit talking about him. Because if I missed a couple of Sundays at church, Reverend Coleman would be at my office. And my secretary knew him, and she would ring back to me and said, God's here. Because she loved that deep voice that he had. And I wondered, how does he know that I'm not there? Well, it was because I was in that same seat all the time. I finally figured that out. He knew where people sat, and so he could tell who was missing. But First Baptist is just wonderful. I love it. I love the people here, and it's been a pleasure to be a part of it for 35 years.
It's amazing how we share these, we all have these warm memories. John, go ahead, John. And they involve community. They involve us interacting together, doing things together, family, Reverend Coleman, whatever. Go ahead, Johnny.
The comments that were made all were quite accurate. I can remember back when Reverend Coleman started putting his weight on that. And he would be like, he said, love is First Baptist way. We're not going to leave anybody behind. And I can remember back then, a lot of families appeared to be struggling. But I saw Rev do whatever it took to get them whatever it is that they needed. And the things that, talking about around the neighborhood, you know, it was just, everywhere you go, it was love is First Baptist way. When he started putting his weight on it, we started putting weight on it. And you had to show it, not just say it. So those kinds of things were very important for me.
Yeah, that's going to go right into where I'm going with this as well. So I got to move on. Got to stay on the time. See if I can make up a minute or two. So one of the other things, if we could go back to my computer as well. One of the other things I asked you was to put on your cards. So I said 5 things that you like about First Baptist. I said, and then ain't got to be 5. It could be 1, 2, whatever. Then I said 5 things that you think that we could do better. That we could do better. Not that we're not doing, but we could do better to help to show that love, as Johnny just said, Reverend Coleman, a lot of you guys, and not just Reverend Coleman, there was a lot of people throughout the years who tried to show that love was the First Baptist way, and that things we could do better. And then I asked you guys, and I'm not going to get into this now, I asked you guys to name, if there is a church out there online or in the community or another community you know, maybe someplace you came from, if there's another church that you think really had their act together in terms of culture, list them and then just tell me why. Like, hey, because they were loving, because they gave a lot, because they made you, whatever the reason is, you know, your mama was the head cook, whatever. So whatever the reason is, don't matter, just list those. And then at the end, like, if you don't mind, and don't put your name on it, just throw them in the thing when we take up collection or whatever, and I like to have it. Sister Ira, hey, Sherman, Sister Ira has a comment she'd like to make.
When I was getting ready to move here in 1995, the church that I was attending in Bolingbrook, Illinois, I told the pastor I was moving. He says, oh, you've got to look up First Baptist Church of Jeffersontown and Reverend Coleman.
Wow.
And so our reputation, Bolingbrook is outside of Chicago, so that, you know.
Yeah.
And so that influence of what this church stood for, you know, greeted me before I got here. And when I got here, like everyone said, people reached out to me. You know, they had empathy for this young woman with these restaurants and these 3 little children.
Outsider.
and it made good for my family. So that atmosphere of family and love from not only Reverend Coleman, but the members of the church.
Man, now I want y'all to hold on that as y'all think about the culture. What everybody talked about, they didn't talk about just sitting in the pew or the food. They talked about this culture that emanated from this place that drew us here, that we liked about it, and it had to do with family and community. But I'm gonna move on. So at another church, let me move on. If you guys don't mind, AV, if you could go back to my presentation. So I want to talk about churches, right? So y'all did great. Y'all helped me lead right into what I want to talk about, was church culture. But I want to do a segue real quick. We're going to get ready to get into how you change culture. Because let's be honest. Well, like, actually, I'm not going to ask you guys to be honest. I'm just going to be honest. I think we've fallen away from, which happens all the time, from what the culture that drew people here. So if that's the case, if you think that it is or whatever, maybe you just think that maybe we haven't fallen away, but we could do better, then I want to talk about some ways that we improve culture. But this is the thing I want to tell you. The things I'm going to share with you guys in just a second, they could apply to the church or should apply to the church, but they also could apply to your small group. Now you say, what do you mean, my small group? Those you hang out with your friends, maybe like if you're in a Sunday school class or you just a bunch of y'all gang together, a fraternity, sorority, or whatever. And it also could apply to your family if it's a small group, but it also could apply to individual relationships, a husband and a wife, father and a son, mother and a daughter, mother and son, father and daughter, whatever, boyfriend, girlfriend, because sometimes the things that cause problems in relationship is these cultures that collide. I come from one place, you come from something else, and we always did it this way. Well, I ain't doing it that way because I come from someplace else. That's two cultures that collide, right? And that's what breaks up a lot of relationships, our unwillingness to now try to figure out how do we harmoniously live together. And you know what happens? Sometimes you got to let some stuff go. But I'm going to get into that in a minute. All right, so we're going to talk about culture. So I went back and I looked at some pictures that represent black church culture. Can y'all say that with me one time? Black church culture. Y'all didn't say that like you mean it. Come on, like put some black church culture. We'll work on it later. So anyway, so I had some churches that I thought that everybody knows about that are pretty prominent, and I highlighted some things about it. And I know y'all can't read it, and I'm sorry, but anyway, I might not be able to read. But some of the things that this is T.D. Jakes, the Potter's House, that I highlighted. It talks about being a non-denominational, multicultural church. It means they're really receptive to a lot of people, a lot of different ways. They try to bring people from all over. It ain't just black people, it's everybody. Well, other things, I'm sorry, I'm trying to fight back to sneeze. They have over 30,000 members. They have multiple locations. So they didn't look at church as just them doing church has to be in one spot. He has churches in other states. Colorado, California, 2 in Texas, 1 in Dallas, 1 in another part. He talked about how their culture is super unusual because 45% of their church is made up of men. Now, usually the overwhelming what's the word I'm trying to say? Predominant, see my teacher's looking here, she making me nervous. But anyway, the predominant thing in churches is females. But they're almost 50-50 men and women, which is unusual. And I think they must be doing something fairly well because they have this dynamic presence going on. Now, just because you got a whole bunch of people don't mean that you're doing God well. That's not what I'm saying. I just put them out as one example. Another one I put out that I really like is Tony Evans and his church, which is the Oak Cliff church, it also is in Dallas. And they have over 10,000 members. And he said, with over 100 different ministries reaching and impacting people both locally and abroad. They even have a private school, right? So they're outside the box. They even have a private school to make sure education, because Dr. Evans, he wasn't Dr. Evans when he started, but look at the growth over time. He started out as just Tony Evans. Before he finished, Dr. Evans had written over 100 books and helped evolve their culture to now they have their own schools. They even have like what it sounds like a mall on over 145 acres. So they've been entrepreneurial even in the way that they have approached church. They've grown their church, and if there's a such thing as church business, which I believe there are, even their church business and the way they approach things has expanded. And if you go to any of these sites and look at them, man, they're really impressive. One of the ones, and this is the church that I suggested in my thing, what I wrote on when I said a church that I think seems like they have it pretty well, is a church in Virginia. Actually, it's in the D.C., Virginia area. You know, they're all there together, called Alpha Street. And with the calling of their current pastor, who I think got called in 2008, man, they've seen phenomenal growth, over fourfold. They have over 10,000 members. They formed new ministries. So this one is called CAYA, or Come As You Are, which they say is having a phenomenal impact on the young people. So they're really doing church, but getting outside the box in the way that they're doing it. Their leader was dynamic and charismatic. They were one of the first churches in the entire country. They're one of the few churches that I looked at that's older than First Baptist. They got First Baptist by about 30 years. So they were like in 1803 and we were 1833, I believe, or something like that. And they had their ups and downs. So one of the reasons I picked them because they were so similar. They had some times when they wasn't really grooving like the way they might need to be grooving, and then they came back, and now they have they started with a young minister who has helped really revolutionize their culture. They were one of the first ones to ordain female ministers. They had, for a short time in the interim, their interim pastor before the pastor they had now was a female. It was the first time that was ever done. Out of a growing church, a large church, was a female. And she did a great job until they called the young man they have there now, John Wesley Howard, I believe his name is, and so he's really set a fire to him, and they've embraced technology. They invested in their church in terms of the facilities. Now the church has literally blown up and grown and buying more space because they've grown so much. So, and I'm talking about culture, right? So I think they're pretty dynamic in some of the things that they have done. And one of the things they said, they want to leave a legacy of worldwide leadership. They want to be a leader worldwide in terms of Christian values and ethics and things like that. Then there's another church that I like. I think it must be pretty dynamic, and it's Saddlebrook Church, and it's Rick Warren. Now, a lot of you guys might know Rick Warren he worked a purpose-driven life, and he's written numbers of books. And man, this church is phenomenal. It's one of the largest churches in the country, and Rick Warren has helped lead that church. They've baptized. I thought this was impressive. They have baptized over 50,000 people. Over 50,000 people. Now, the other thing about this church started back when First Baptist started. I'm lying, that's not true. They started in 79. Since 1979, they have baptized over 50,000 people, and they have multiple congregations in many places. They have all the technology and everything else. They have numerous things for youth and whatever else. And I just think that they're growing. And then I personally follow some of the other things, like he has these daily words, a purpose-driven life, daily purpose, whatever. I mean, they're just doing phenomenal things all over. Changing culture. He came as a young guy. And all these churches, except for Alfred Street, because they were way long ago, but they started the same way. They all started with about 10 people. Like Tony Evans started with 10 people. They were meeting at his house. And Alfred Street, they were a long time ago, and there's a whole bunch of changes there. They were back during Civil War time. And but all the other churches, Rick Warren, Tony Evans, whatever, all of them are younger churches, and they all started with just a few people. And then I have First Baptist, right? And I mean good, right? I just wanted to do some comparisons. And then some of the things that we had. So I took this right off our website yesterday, right? So this is what's there. Part of it is what's there. We started in 1833. We claim that we have about 1,500 members. We talk about our campus that we have. We talk about that we have we even own a historic black school, which we do. We say our ministries that reach out throughout the community and around the world. We say, let's see, I'm trying to say that each need and models have been developed to give the membership ideas of what is possible. We give God the honor and glory for our success. We believe as long as we keep God first, our future will be equally as rewarding and productive as our past. We have truly been blessed. So some of the things need to be corrected on this, like our membership, I don't think probably is quite at 1,500 anymore, but I could be wrong. Anyway, so just some comparisons to our church and some other churches. So if you went online and looked at our church compared to some of these other churches, that would be some of the things you see. Make you go, right? Make you go, All right, so I want to get into now, real quickly, time's flying, gotta move, 6 ways to change culture. And I'm gonna fly through these pretty quickly. But if you got a question, raise your hand, because the most important thing is get your input. That's why I'm trying to move quickly, so if you guys have some responses, you can speak. So let me pause. Anybody got any questions, thoughts, comments? Brother Clyde Bitton? What's that? Was he speaking Spanish? What was that?
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
First, giving honor to God. So when you see these mega churches that you put on the board, when you really look inside of these churches, there's small groups, small cells.
Yes.
So there's about 20 people to a cell, 20 to 25.
Yeah.
And that's how these churches are actually growing. So again, you got you got this big church, but you have members that are engaged with each other in these small cells. So,
You're
that-
exactly right.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
You know, I talked to if some of you guys may remember a while back when we were doing Bible officer stuff, it was a while back, we went to Southeast and we got to meet with their head deacons and some of their folks or whatever. And Southeast is one of the top 5 largest churches in the country with over 45,000 members. And we said, man, how did you all get there? What did you guys do? They said small groups. Like everybody think we're one big church, but we're not. We're a church of a lot of small groups. Now, this is the thing about, there's a difference between a small group and a clique. Everybody's ready to go negative and say, oh, it's a clique, it's a clique, it's a clique. A clique is something where you're excluded. Small group is just people get together. Now, if you go to a small group and they don't want to let you in, it's a clique. But if you go to a small group and say, come on, hang out with us, this is some of the stuff we're doing, then it's just a small group, right? Because sometimes we get quick to mislabel things. So there should be small groups. There should be people getting together doing different things, and none of us should be offended. Matter of fact, what we should be doing is trying to find our own small group. Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't want to. But inside those small groups, so it's technology that allows them to function inside those small
The
groups.
big group.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, so one of the things that binds you together, there has to be processes and technology and things in place to make sure your small group or the small group isn't just a small group. Juan.
Now, we keep talking about the culture and the culture changes. We keep talking about culture and the culture changes, but we're not mentioning Christ. Now, if we're supposed to be here at church worshiping, shouldn't we follow Christ's whole, I guess, footprint on what the culture should be?
The funny thing is, I'm glad you asked because I'm getting ready to address this just not right now. That's my 6 ways. So you mentioned Christ not being answered and shouldn't he be part of it? Yes. Anybody else have any comments before we move forward? Yes, I would need oxygen after this. Okay, so the first one is uncover which behaviors need to change and which don't. So now remember, think about these things in your personal life between your personal relationships, think about them in your small groups, and then think about them as a church. So I'm asking one question, and I'm asking you to apply it 3 different ways. What in your personal relationships with your children, with your spouse, with your relatives, whatever, what within your small groups needs to change? What within your church needs to change? What are the behaviors we see today that we want to stop? What are the things we want to stop? What are the behaviors we see today we want to continue? We need to identify those things. What are the behaviors we aren't seeing today that we need to see for the future? Culture is everybody's responsibility. 2 Chronicles 7:14, which you all know, if my people who are called by my names, you all know the rest of it, right? It's everybody's responsibility. And God was pointing to the people, that was a cultural change, right? That was a cultural change. God was trying to get the people to change. If you turn from your wicked ways, I will hear from heaven, will forgive your sins and heal your land. That was a cultural change he was talking about, right? Things that they needed to stop doing and things they needed to stop your wicked ways, pray. Yes, ma'am?
Oh, I just said, seek my face.
Seek my face, right. That was a cultural change. He gave them things to do and things not to do, things they need to stop doing, right? Number 2, so first thing is you got to uncover which behaviors. So if you're looking for these for your own relationships, you got to identify them. It's got to be intentional. You can't just, well, we need to be nicer and we need no. Let's talk about specific things. I need you to do this. My wife is great at telling me specific things. She's a teacher. She's an educator. And you educators know y'all can get right to the heart of the matter. I need you to do this. I don't want you to do that. That's where we got to work. But anyway, but it's got to be specific. You can't generalize it and, oh, he needs to treat me nicer. She needs to treat me better. Like, what are you talking about? Same thing in church, right? Same thing in church. We need to be specific. And it's not about hurting somebody's feelings or whatever. It's about better, right? It's about better. You got to be intentional about identifying those things. Number 2 says you got to understand motivation. So let's just be real, right? Things don't happen unless people really want them to happen. There's some motivation behind it. You can say, oh, we ought to love each other, right? Right. That ain't going to happen unless there's some motivation behind it. Human beings are complex and can't be motivated to change using a one-size-fits-all approach. The thing that motivates Sister Sonda isn't the same thing that motivates Sister Paulette. So you can't just say, we're going to slap a big slogan on it and now it's going to work. That's not the way it works. Finding the right blend of motivators that appeal to your people can be complicated, but it's a must if you're asking your people to change. Now, we'll ask you guys to go to Genesis 11, 1 through 6, but we ain't got time, so I'm just going to ask you, write it down, look it up in your Bible now, but check it out. About motivators, so we got to find things. Now, to Juan's point, central to motivation, I think, is Christ. Why do it? Look at what he's done for you. That should be one motivation. You can apply that to your life. But the whole Bible is filled with reasons that should help us to be motivated about helping our brothers and sisters, about how we should treat people, about what we should do as times change. There's tons of answers and solutions in the Bible. Number 3. So the first one was uncover what behaviors need to change and be specific. Number 2 was understand what motivates. Let me pause right quick. We got a minute, but I'm gonna try to make it work. What are some of the things that could motivate people in the church?
How about us motivating one another? What I mean by that is encouraging one another.
Yeah, man, that's great. Encouraging one another. The AV did a great job, even though I was late today. They ought to be given credit for it. We got greeters on the door. We ought to give them credit. We ought to thank the greeters when we see them. They had to get up earlier than you. They had to be here be on that door. The ushers stand there all day long. They don't complain. They try to be nice and they help you out. There's people who have been here for a while who more than help share with you. They give you history. They follow. They support you. There's a lot of people and things that we can encourage. There's a lot of things we do good. Before Reverend Coleman, during Reverend Coleman, and after Reverend Coleman. We didn't totally change. We might not did everything we need to do. There was a lot of stuff that happened good after Reverend Coleman. And I mean a lot of good stuff. Because we got good people. And good people do good things. And we did good things. But the reason why I think Reverend Coleman was so iconic, because, man, he exemplified love is the First Baptist way. He exemplified family and community. Because you see it permeate in everything we do. When Johnny stood and talked, I thought he was going to talk about, if any of you guys remember, how dynamic it was here on Saturdays. Y'all know what was going on Saturdays. Man, this place used to be packed with kids playing basketball and doing all kinds of things. It was busy on Saturday than it was on Sunday. Let me move on. So, number 3, provide individual and collective sense of purpose for your members. Individual and collective purpose. We all should share and feel like we're part of this. Motivation is driven by having a connection to an effort and feeling that you're involved in meaningful work. Does everybody here feel like you're connected to the church and now you're involved in meaningful work? If you're not, then that's our fault collectively. Everybody that comes to this church should feel like that you're part of being part of a body that's doing meaningful work. Even as it's challenging or painful, research attests that meaningful work might not necessarily make someone happy, but it can give a person a sense of purpose, value, and impact of being involved in something bigger than themselves. That's one of the things I always thought that church did for me. It made me feel like I was part of something that was bigger than me because it was a God thing. It was bigger than me. It didn't matter about me, it mattered about what God wanted. 4, create intentional connectedness. Now, I know this is tough sometimes. What I think this means, and I have my definition, what I think it means, you got to go out your way sometimes to create connectivity. That means sometimes when somebody don't speak to you, you got to go speak to them. You got to get up out your seat where you're nice and comfortable, and you see somebody you ain't never seen before, and you need to say something. You ain't feeling right, but you need to smile. Ain't nothing worse than seeing somebody who got a grumpy face. Now, be honest, right? You see somebody looking all, you don't want to go up and say hello. Matter of fact, you're scared of them. You see, come on, honest. You see somebody with a grumpy face, ground and small, rolling their eyes or whatever, you are not going up to them, and you know what your thought about them is? They evil, they mean, they in a bad spirit, whatever it is, you don't want to be part of, and you run. Ask yourself, what's your face look like? How you fixing your face, right? What does your face, honestly, what does your face look like? Some of us ain't got some pleasing faces sometimes. I was going to say something, but I get in a lot of trouble if I joke somebody, so I'm not. So anyway, okay, sis, I'm sorry. Okay, so back to, I'm sorry, I got to get back on. The more a church can offer members an opportunity for meaningful and connections, the harder those members are likely to work and the more enduring those loyalties is likely to be. Y'all hear what that said? The more a church can offer members an opportunity for meaning and connections, the harder those members are likely to work and the more enduring those loyalties is likely to be. Young people, give them some connectivity. Older people, people in the middle, whatever that means, Everybody needs to have a place that they can connect and feel meaningful. Creating a culture of recognition, Sherman said this, recognition, trust, and goodwill results in higher engagement and the feeling of autonomy and ultimately connectedness to God's work in the direction of the church. If you create this culture right, people will feel connected. They'll feel like they're doing part of God's work. I really think, and it's in the Bible, and which amazed me, it said one of the gifts is the gift of encouragement. Check that out. A spiritual gift is the gift of encouragement. But guess what? Everybody don't have the spirit to say something nice to somebody else. Sister Sana, you rocking that hat. Like, don't think I wasn't going to get to that sooner or later. But she is. She rocking that hat, right? And it's nice. That's what church is to me. Seeing our women dressed up all nice, seeing the kids running around, the brothers laughing and having fun with each other, hearing the word of God, being moved, feeling like the preacher is speaking only to you, feeling connected. Guess what church is not about? It's not about just you. It's not just about how you feel. You know, church is supposed to be this thing where we come learn and we move and we try to help others. We're trying to get out to help others. It's not just about us. Hopefully, we'll get blessed as well, but it's not just about us. Let me move forward. So number 5, I'll go back through them. So one is uncover which behaviors need to change and which don't. Remember, this could be in your personal life as well as your small group. Understand motivation. Provide individual and collective sense of purpose for members. That's the same way in a relationship. Both parties in a relationship got to feel wanted, like they're purposeful. You can't belittle somebody all the time and they're going to feel like they're happy or whatever. 4, create intentional connectedness. Find ways to get connected. If you don't have a way, find a way. Create a way. Invent a way. And then 5 says communicate, communicate, communicate. People need to understand how they fit into a church and organization's goals and objectives. Communicate your church's goals and vision. Start by creating a campaign to reinforce your current vision and the members' roles. If I haven't learned anything else over this period, one of the things I've learned in being a deacon during this time is that people want to know what's going on. What the deacons doing now? What y'all doing? Where the church going? What's going on? What's going on? Which is good. It's not a problem at all. It just lets us know we try to communicate. And one of the first things we did when the church closed down and everything happened, did you guys know formerly we did not have a communications ministry? That just happened during the pandemic. That's not something that we had. Now we take it for granted because we look for our at a glance or whatever and give kudos to the communications team, all of them. It's more than just Victoria, but she's doing a great job leading that, but all of them. But now we almost get upset if it's not there, but we didn't even have that before the pandemic. But we understood we need to communicate, and you know what? And we need to do better, and we need to do more. But it's really, really important. For the sake of time, you guys get about how important communications is. So I'm gonna go on to number 6. I said we need to recognize, and Sherman, like I say, alludes to recognize and reward desired outcomes. It says recognizing star performers promotes role models for others to emulate. I think Deacon Weaver was a star performer. There's a lot of star performers that we have in the church now. I'm just gonna put out one to make a comment. But I think he was. Recognizing star performance promotes role models for others to emulate. But don't forget about those people who are taking incremental steps to support the overall mission and priorities within the roles. Everybody needs to be encouraged, not just the star performers. Sherman alluded to this about encouraging people. People need to be recognized for a job well done while having a sense of ownership and accomplishment. People like to be encouraged. They like to be told they look nice, they're doing well, things are good. They like that. Members want meaningful work that contributes value to the church, and they'll work harder if they have it and are recognized for it. People like working hard and being recognized for working hard. They like giving and being recognized that they give. They like feeling like they are part of something and the things they do have meaning. That's part of the ways that you change culture. So in conclusion, a strong church culture is created through having faith, as Juan said, in Christ, in God, to successfully navigate your ministry or groups through changing times. Our faith should not be in ourselves or even what we see. That is not it. Our faith is in if we do the right thing, if we carry ourselves the right way, if we really invest in and encourage others, if we do the right thing, our culture will be fine and we will grow and prosper. That has been proven time and time and time again. And you've seen where God has blessed his people, even in crisis. Like even with Daniel, he tells them later on, he says, don't you guys don't do your best and give your best, even though that you're under this kind of dictatorship of Nebuchadnezzar. You guys keep giving and doing your best. You're going to benefit and you're going to prosper. And they did. So the church grew, the God's people grew, even in the midst of calamity and catastrophe. Even in the midst of crazy cultural times, they grew and prospered. So don't think a pandemic or prices or any of this other stuff is going to keep us from growing if we're about God's business, right? If we're about positive cultural change. And don't think that that we have to do everything that we did in the past, that we can't evolve and still grow. We can do different things and still grow. It says, nurture faith in God's word. In God's word. That means you got to abide. 15:5, John 15:5. Abide in me and I'll abide in you, because apart from me you can do nothing. Kind of paraphrase. Abide in God's word and imitating Christ-like behavior establishes a culture capable of weathering any change. It's not as hard in terms of understanding as we may think. It's not as hard as we may think, but it is going to take some effort. If we really want to change the culture, if we really want to grow, if we really want to be the type of church that we've been in the past, that we see ourselves being in the future, it's not hard. You got to stay in God's word and imitate Christ. Any questions? I got 3 minutes.
I think one of the key points you brought out in your conclusion is our faith in God. When you look at some other churches that have the numbers, 45,000, 30,000, that didn't come by just people doing stuff. That came through having faith in God to make sure things were done properly. I remember the story I think you had told about Southeast Christian when they first bought the land out there where they are right now. Maybe you need to tell that story again, how they was able to pay off that debt.
Real quickly, Southeast was trying to decide whether they were going to buy that church and grow. And so their pastor at the time went to the church and said, do y'all think that, they were back over there off of Heiksland, they said, where Canaan is now, do y'all think that we ought to build a new church and grow and buy this land and do all this for it? And 60% of the church, 67% I think they said, something like that, of the church said, yes, I think we ought to build and grow. And so, but the other, whatever it is, 33% said, nah, I think we're not ready. And so even though the pastor had the votes to do it, he said, nope. So he told the deacons, go out, pray about it. They're going to come back in 30 days and go back and approach the membership and see what they say and come back. So they did that. They went out. Each deacon had an experience, something that spoke to them about why they should move forward. So they came back, shared the experience, then came back and then said, we all think we should move. So they took another vote. The church, he told the church to pray about it too, took another vote. The next vote came out at 97% said move, that we ought to move, that we feel like we ought to move, buy this church, take a chance on have faith in God to move. After they took that vote, they went to collect money. They raised $90 million in about 3 or 4 months. Paid for their church $72 million in cash and had a surplus. That's what faith in God and growing your culture would do.
And the point I'm trying to make is, anytime you're doing something, God has to be in the forefront of it. Even going through adversity, God has to still be in the forefront of it. Trusting God to make sure, am I in line with His word, His will, and His way? I think a lot of times our faith falters sometimes because of doubt. Yeah. Can we do this? Can we do that? And the reason I say that is when we're trying to operate in our own mind and in doubt, you left God out of the picture. Think about what we can do as individuals, as a church, as a church culture here at First Baptist J-Town. If we allow God to supersede what we think or imagine. I think, we've talked about, we got all the resources here that we need to do what our desire is. But do we trust God enough that He can do it? Our membership might not be 1,500 right now, but that's not a problem. what I look at is not so much quantity but quality of individuals that are here to show forth love. This is the First Baptist way. How much we can impact this community, how much we can impact this city, how much we can impact this state and this nation that we live in by trusting God. We are, what I've said before, in kind of a rebuilding phase, restructuring phase. But only that can happen if we trust God enough to move us forward, propel us, to get prepared for the next pastor that's going to come. We don't have to wait till he gets here to do it. Now, let's don't get that mixed up. We can start making ground right now if we just trust God.
Amen. It's a time to go. We're going to get ready to pray. But let me leave you with this. God created you for a time such as this. You being here is by no mistake. Not at all. We're going to get ready to, I'm going to pray, and then we're going to have, because of time, we're going to pray, and then we're going to have them to do the offering, to come forth and do the offering right after. So after I pray, please make sure that you participate however you see fit for the offering. You bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we just want to say thank you, Lord, for this time you've given us together. I pray something was said or done, Lord, that speaks to our heart, that helps us be the people that you call us to be. Lord, help us not be afraid, Lord, as we walk in faith to be the light that you call us to be in dark times. We give you all the praise, honor, and glory.